What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Chae Cole, and super excited to hop into another episode of the Cole Therapy Podcast. So let's get into it. This time, we're talking about the debt-free journey. And if you didn't know, if you're new to the Cole Therapy Podcast, this is actually how we started the podcast. We started with talking about finances. And so, what makes me qualified to talk about this? In 2019, August 15th. So I just celebrated the fourth year anniversary of being debt free. But on August 15th, 2019, I made my last student loan payment, and that eliminated all debt to my name at that moment in time. And something I've been able to continue to withhold to this day. So I'm just grateful for that. And as I reflect, like, it's hard to believe it's 4 years. And so that milestone is something that I'm proud of, and look to encourage those who may be wrestling with things like student loan debt or, different debts or things of that nature. And so I'm just going to share how that even happened, and how I'm grateful. I know that student loan forgiveness has been a topic in the news, and back and forth, like they were going to forgive student loans and things of that nature. But yeah, we'll see. I think it is a crisis that our country is facing. So this episode is a little less on the spiritual side, but I'll get into how faith played a role in that as well. So graduated in 2017 from undergrad, and at the time I had about $24,000 in student loan debt. And so for those who also don't know, I went to Methodist University in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which at the time was about $40,000 a year to go there. And during my tenure there, I was a RA, so room was covered, not board. Room was covered, and so that decreased. I had about half in scholarships, and so my mom did have to take out some student loans, like the Parent Plus loans and things of that nature. But assigned to my name was 24,000 at the end, and I finished in 3 years, y'all. So I finished my degree in 3 years, and so imagine had I stayed for the fourth year, we're probably looking at 30 at least. And so that was one of the motivations of getting out as quick as I did, or trying to achieve that goal as well. So graduate with around 24,000. It was right at that. I think I did make a payment before I graduated to bring it down some to the 24, because on top of being an RA, I worked as a assistant supervisor in the tutoring center, as well as I had work study. So I was doing pretty good for someone that only had jobs that were on campus and taking 18 credit hours a semester. So anyway, the goal was, so as you know, if you've listened to the previous episodes, I did continue my education by pursuing my master's. And so one of the benefits of doing that was, since I was still enrolled in school, interest was not accruing on the loans that, like I know it's unsubsidized and subsidized loans, whichever ones still draw interest, but you don't pay until you are not enrolled in school anymore, at least half time. Those were not accruing interest at the time either. And so during the time of graduating and starting my job, I started my job in July. I started graduate school in August. Of course, there's a 6-month grace period anyway, so I would have had at least 6 months to do that. So the first semester of college, luckily, my company had a benefit in which they would reimburse you for your classes. And so I did take out student loans for my first semester of graduate school. And so what I did was I took out those loans, and while I was going through school, it was just me, single, right? Making about an average salary for a recent grad at the time, but I was living like a broke college kid, y'all. Like ramen noodles still, peanut butter sandwiches, and cereal, the whole thing. And yeah, so I went that route, so it kept my expenses low. I didn't go out and buy a car. I'm still driving a car that I've been driving since college and things of that nature. And so didn't have any of those expenses coming out. So living like a broke college kid still, taking my lunch to work every day, rarely splurging on anything. All of my money was going towards paying off these loans because I set a goal from the get-go that by the time I finish my master's, I want to be completely debt-free. And so made those sacrifices, like wasn't going on vacation, wasn't taking extravagant trips, and really just being frugal with my money and things of that nature is how I did it. Like there's no magic formula. There's no recipe for it or just program or anything. During that time I was looking at different methods and following Dave Ramsey. I did not follow his approach. And so what I did in terms of paying them off, again, you have the subsidize and the subsidize. So I wasn't really paying attention to that. I was actually looking at the interest rate period. So I paid off the ones that were accruing interest, regardless of your student status, your enrollment status. I paid those off first based on the interest rate. I didn't go the Dave Ramsey route where you do lowest amount to largest amount, the snowball method. I did what they would refer to as the avalanche method. So I was looking at interest rate because I knew I was disciplined enough to look at the money behind it. I'm a very analytical person, and so I was looking at the interest rate instead of looking at the amount. And so I paid off. I was probably putting, at the beginning of my career, I was probably putting at least $600 to $700 a month towards it. And like I said, I didn't have to make a payment or anything like that during this time because I was still considered enrolled in school. But again, it was my goal to finish paying them off by the time I finished with my master's. And so after, seeing it, knocking one out, because I think it was like 6 in total, varying amounts, right? Because you had 3 years, 2 semesters, so six loans, maybe something like that. And so, knocking those out and bonuses and tax returns, I wasn't splurging or spending those. The other question I get typically is, what about your emergency fund? So I did save up an emergency fund of about 3 months of expenses. And so, so that I would have that just in case of an emergency of some sort, right? And that I didn't touch, but everything else, after I built that, everything else was, as Dave Ramsey suggests, towards my debt and things of that nature. So, like I said, tax returns, bonuses, all of that was pretty much going towards the debt. And so did I achieve the goal of being debt free by the time I graduated? I graduated in May of 2019 and I still had debt, y'all. I was highly upset. But so from May until August, so what is that? May, June, July, August, 3 months later, I was able to achieve the goal. And let's look at some scripture here, right? And one of the biggest things that I think I took to take this approach is, and I've already talked about this scripture on the podcast, but Proverbs 22 verse 7 says, "The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." I think original King James says slave to the lender. And so that was really the motivational force behind pushing towards achieving this goal. Also seeing how it has plagued not only the African American community, but the millennials at large and young adults at large in terms of massive debt amounts and how people couldn't afford homes and couldn't afford different things that we would love to enjoy. And so seeing those different things happen and take place, it really pushed me to want to do those things and want to get this out, because I'm thinking generationally. Generational conversations do not occur when you have children. Generational conversations happen the moment that you know that this is what I want to do. So I'm thinking generationally. I'm thinking about my future wife, my future children, my future grandchildren, right? The Bible also says that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how do I prepare myself for these things that are taking place? And I think that's what a kingdom mindset looks like. Whether I was going to say a kingdom man, but I think a kingdom man and or woman, their mindset has to be generationally. And I don't want to get there too much because I think we're going to talk about that at some point in terms of generational thinking, right? Because everybody wants generational wealth, but can you have a generational mindset to even get there first? So that was really the driving forces behind that decision. And the benefits of being debt free, y'all, is there have been so many different times where I've had an emergency, or family members have had an emergency, friends have had an emergency, and I can say, because I'm debt free, because I've been able to save money and invest money, I've been able to assist, right? Or emergencies. Y'all, I just had to drop $1,000 on a car repair in the last few weeks, and it sucks, but it didn't cause as big of a burden as it would have had I had, student loan. And I understand that student loans are in a pause still right now, but it wouldn't have been, it wasn't as big of a burden as it could have been because I had student loans to think about, or this debt to think about. And so the freedom that comes with being financially free is something that we as believers have to think about as well. And stewardship, how much more ministry can I do through giving? That has opened up doors. And like I said, thinking generationally, thinking about the future for my family, and being in a position to purchase a home, to provide for my family and have retirement secure, and all these different things, to where I'm not a burden to my children or grandchildren, or to my mom even now, right? To my family now, that they don't have to bail me out of certain situations. And so, hear me. If this has been your scenario, or you aren't there yet financially, this is not to beat you up about it. This is just to show you an example of what can happen when you change your mindset, when you get serious about your finances, when you get serious. Or I understand that sometimes your income doesn't dictate or allow you to make certain decisions. Like when I threw out the number of how much I was making a month, and you're like, I don't have that. Start with what you have. Start there. It is not inevitable to have debt. It's not inevitable that student loans will be your future forever. Use me as a witness, as a testimony to what can happen, to what can occur. Society is driving home the fact that that student loans are inevitable, or whatever the case may be. And we need forgiveness. I want it to be in a position where the only forgiveness I need comes from Jesus, right? And so in terms of bailing out financially and things of that nature, I'm all for it. I hope someone asked me when they first announced, like, how do you feel knowing that you made these payments versus now they're talking about forgiveness? I said, at the end of the day, I'm still able to make certain decisions now. I've been able to make the freedom that came with it, the peace of mind that came with it, knowing that I didn't have it was worth the cost, having the skin in the game to do that. And so I just say all of that to encourage you that regardless of where you are on this journey, you can do it. It's not something that you have to live with forever. I think it's important as we look at how we operate in ministry, how we operate as kingdom people, the freedom and the flexibility that comes with it is so important and so vital to navigating and doing ministry and doing life and in thinking about it. And I think it's important, especially as a man looking to provide in a financial sense. It's been a blessing, again, not just to me, but to others, to my family, to my friends, to be able to be in this position. And so it's something that I wish and I pray on for each and every one that listens to this podcast, and each and every person dealing with student loans, because it is a crisis that I think society needs to tackle and address, and we have to educate ourselves versus just signing papers and sending people down one path, right? So that's conversation for another day. But yeah, so I hope this testimony, this journey, sharing my journey of how I was able to do it, is inspiring. And I pray that you are able, if you have questions, if there's more you want to know about this topic, feel free to DM me. I'm not a financial advisor or anything of that nature. So do your own research and all that good stuff. Disclaimer out there. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Cole Therapy Podcast. As always, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, all that at Cole Therapy. Like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcasting platform you're listening to it on. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a like, leave a comment, just on if this video was impactful to you. And yeah, let's be free, y'all. So, as always, I'm your host, Chae Cole. And until next time, peace.